This is a video commentary on the radical theory on men's metabolic syndrome or infertility and depression, focusing on BBD, dysthymia, bipolar, and major depression. Journey through this research report that will help you to find out more about men's metabolic syndrome or infertility and depression, and hopefully you will find the information that you require to lead a fruitful and amazing life. How may this report help you? Now do have a read on section A to E. Continuation from the previous table of contents, do have a read on section F to K on how this report may help you. Metabolic syndrome symptoms. Now, the official diagnosis criteria for metabolic syndrome are central obesity, high triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high fasting glucose. However, it is the author's opinion that these criteria are limited and actually should encompass more than these few criteria. It should encompass the number 1 to number 22 symptoms as listed here. And why do these symptoms occur? Well, more information are found within section D and E of the report. So do have a read of these symptoms, which are differentiated by noticeable symptoms ranging from number 1 to 11 and not so noticeable symptoms ranging from number 12 to 22. Borderline personality disorder symptoms. Now, some of us may have insight into our BBD symptoms impacting our relationships and life. Unfortunately, some of us may not be aware that these symptoms are impacting our relationships. Now, how do these symptoms arise? Well, they arise due to fluctuating brain chemicals from normal to amplified levels, and more information about it is found within section F and G of the report. So do have a read of these symptoms ranging from number 1 to 20. Now, if you notice, these symptoms are related to unregulated emotions. A defining criteria for BBD is splitting. What this means is that at times we view a person as very good, and at other times we view the same person as very bad. There's no middle ground. However, in this research report, it is theorized that borderline personality disorder is not just a personality disorder, but in fact is actually a form of resistant depression. Dysthymia symptoms occur due to low levels of brain chemicals, and more information about it is found within section F and G of the report. Now do have a read on the symptoms ranging from number 1 to 7. It should be noted here that dysthymia symptoms are a milder form of major depression. Bipolar symptoms arise due to fluctuating brain chemicals from mania or hypomania phase to major or moderate depression phase, and more information about it is found within section F and G of the report. Now, the major depression or moderate depression symptoms are found within the next page, while mania or hypomania symptoms are found here, stated as number 1 to 8. So do have a read on these mania or hypomania symptoms. Major depression symptoms arise due to very low levels of brain chemicals, and more information about it is found within section F and G of the report. So do have a read on these major depression symptoms from number 1 to number 9. Section A of the research report explores how stress impacts our energy levels, which may contribute to illnesses such as metabolic syndrome. Now let us start off with a question. Who is best to withstand future stress? Would it be Miss A, Miss C, or Miss B? Clearly, it will be Miss B with her optimal nutrition intake, which relates to the Goldilocks syndrome, whereby it states that for optimal nutrition, we should have a balanced intake of carb, protein, fats, vitamin, minerals, and antioxidant. And optimal nutrition would help us to withstand future stress, else the stress will magnify our imbalances. Let us now explore about stress and its impact towards the body. Now, our body has been adapted for survival from our ancestors. For example, Adam, our caveman, versus Andy, our modern man. In Adam's time, the environment is pristine in air, food, and water. The stress that Adam faces would be such as a threat of a tiger. How about Andy, our modern man? Well, his environment is polluted in air, food, and water. How about his stress? Well, there are many stress such as job deadlines, car breakdowns, financial worries. Clearly, in our modern times, there are more stress and therefore there are more free radicals and thus more illnesses impacting the mind, fertility, digestion, healing, etc. Now, what are free radicals and how are they formed? Well, free radicals are formed from negative environment exposure, such as smoke in the air, polluted waters that we take in, alcohol that we consume, even our own body's metabolism create free radicals. High intensity exercises create free radicals. Different fat types such as vegetable oil, which is easily oxidized, create free radicals. Obesity create free radicals. Higher glucose such as white rice, white pasta, which is easily converted to sugar, create free radicals. Stress create free radicals. Now, free radicals are enemy towards our body because it steals electrons from healthy cells. Now, fortunately, our body has a defense system, the defender, which is the antioxidant defense system, would protect against free radical attacks and thereby protecting the cells within our body. Now, free radicals attack overexcited or over-vibrating cells or organs. Free radical attacks at an overexcited organ will weaken the organ, leading to illnesses such as metabolic syndrome, depression, or VVD. In order to counter the free radical attacks, we need an optimal antioxidant defense system. However, at times, this defense system is weakened due to two factors. Number one, impaired methylation. Number two, depleted glutamine level. Now, what does methylation mean? Methylation is actually crucial in its role to produce and recycle glutathione, a master antioxidant. But a methylation gene defect called MTHFR would create a 30 to 70% inefficiency in producing glutathione in times of chronic stress. Next, depleted glutamine level. Chronic stress will actually lead to protein catabolization, where glutamine, which is found abundantly in muscles, is turned into immediate energy for quick reflex action to counter the stress or threat. And the impact of this depleted glutamine level would be an impaired defense against free radical damages due to depletion of antioxidant status, because glutamine is the precursor to glutathione, a master antioxidant. Next, impaired immunity, because glutamine is a major fuel for immune cells in the gut. Next, autoimmunity issues and nutrient malabsorption, because glutamine prevents leaky gut. So the summary impact of a glutamine level which is depleted will be an impaired defense against free radical damages, and as well as an impaired immunity and autoimmunity issues. What happens when we face a stress? Now, not all forms of stress is the same. Feeling sadness over an incident will create an emotional stress within us. Facing a job deadline, meanwhile, will create an anxious type of stress within us. Because our body has been adapted for survival from our ancestors, only anxious type of stress, which equates to threat, would lead to our body adaptation for survival, whereby survival is prioritized over fertility, digestion, growth, healing, immunity, circulatory, and metabolism. We will go into more details on what this statement means. Our body adaptation for survival will cause GABA, a brain chemical which is associated with fear, anxiety, and worry, to be amplified to lower levels. Meanwhile, we will also feel great discomfort in facing the stress, whereby serotonin, a brain chemical which relates to a degree of well-being, will be amplified to lower levels. Now, our body's adaptation for survival will cause energy within our body to be redirected towards the cortisol response by the adrenal gland to fight or flee from the stress. Within our body mechanism, cortisol hormone will be increased at the expense of the sex hormones production, and this is termed as cortisol steal. Anxious stress overworks the liver and the sex gland to rebalance sex hormones level, which then attract free radical attacks to the glands. The liver and sex gland weaken, therefore there will be hydroxylation impairment leading to hormonal imbalances, infertility, metabolic syndrome. Hydroxylation problem will also result in inadequate conversion of cholesterol from liver to sex hormones by the sex gland, hence increasing total cholesterol. The summary impact of the cortisol response will be a suppression of fertility and also suppression of our circulatory system, whereby total cholesterol will increase. Next, there will be conservation of energy to fight or flee from the stress by slowing down the digestion of fats that require more time, effort, and more of the body's resources. Within our body mechanism, hydroxylation impairment would adversely affect the liver's detoxification and also slow down bile, which is used for fats digestion produced by the liver. This in turn slows down cholesterol excretion and also causes malabsorption of fat-soluble vitamin D and E that reduces production of HDL from the intestines. The summary impact of the conservation of energy to fight or flee from the stress will be a suppression of our digestion system and also a suppression of our circulatory system, whereby there will be low HDL cholesterol. Next, there will be protein catabolization from our muscles to supply immediate energy for quick reflex actions to counter the anxious stress. Within the body mechanism, arginine and its precursor, glutamine, both protein, will be greatly depleted in times of stress and catabolic states, and they are then redirected to supply energy to muscles for quick reflex. Arginine is used in cell repair while glutamine is involved in immunity. The summary impact of protein catabolization will be a suppression of growth, healing, and immunity, and also a predisposition to metabolic issues such as high triglycerides, or in other words, high obesity. When we're in the survival mode, our survival is also prioritized over a male's attractiveness and long-term physical and mental health. When our body is adapted for survival, there will be energy amplification within our body to make us more androgenic in terms of physical and mental to ward off the threat of stress. With regards to physical, we'll become more scary looking for a male, whereby there will be more pronounced facial hair and severe acne. With regards to the mind, we'll become more focused, alert, and quick to action to counter the stress. Within the body mechanism, physical-wise, 5-alpha reductase enzyme will amplify testosterone to DHT, and we know that acne-prone individual has more DHT and squalene, which is a precursor to acne and cholesterol in their skin. Hydroxylation problem would also lead to inefficient synthesis of cholesterol from squalene, leading to increasing squalene and thereby increasing VLDL and LDL cholesterol levels. The summary impact of this is that long-term physical overexertion or prolonged hyperandrogenism will lead to metabolic syndrome and also the feminization of male because of the decrease in testosterone level. We will also see our circulatory being suppressed with high VLDL and LDL cholesterol levels. With regards to the mind, within the body mechanism, the same 5-alpha reductase enzyme would activate estrogen receptor beta, ERB, and this ERB would then amplify oxytocin, glutamine, and dopamine levels, all are brain chemicals, to higher levels, leading to high excitability for the brain. Together with the previously mentioned low GABA, total excitability of the brain energy is amplified to very high levels, and free radical attacks would then occur to an overexcited brain, which would then cause oxygen deprivation in the brain, leading to hydroxylation problems and then weakening the brain. And the summary impact of this is a weakened brain, leading to brain chemical imbalances reflected in illnesses such as depression, for instance, borderline personality disorder, BPD, dysthymia, bipolar, and major depression. In the next few slides are numerical applications of the concepts that we've learned so far based on hypothetical thought experiments. Now, when we are not facing any type of anxious stress, our 5-alpha reductase enzyme will equate to 0, meaning to say testosterone will not be amplified to DHT, and therefore we will not be androgenic. Our testosterone and estrogen level will be at its baseline level. With regards to estrogen receptor beta over estrogen receptor alpha activation ratio, it will equate to 1, which signifies survival instinct to face the stress. But because we are not under any type of anxious stress, we will actually remain at ease and calm. Now, when this ratio goes up, we will become more at ease and more calm. And when this ratio goes down, we will become more unease and more anxious. Now, with With regards to fertility, because we're not under any anxious stress, it will be good. When we face an anxious stress, our 5-alpha reductase enzyme will be more than 0, meaning to say our testosterone will amplify towards GHT and will become more androgenic. The same anxiety would also trigger aromatization rate to increase from previously of 0.15 to now of 0.2. Do refer to the blue table at the right hand corner. Now we can see that previously at aromatization rate of 0.15 that the testosterone level was 200 and now it has decreased to 180 due to cortisol steal, whereby cortisol hormone is increased at the expense of sex hormones. Now, when we multiply these two testosterone numbers with its respective aromatization rate, we will then obtain estradiol of 30 and 36 respectively, and the net testosterone level will then be 170 and 144 respectively. So the summary impact of an increase in aromatization rate would be a decrease of testosterone level and an increase in estradiol level. Now, with regards to estrogen receptor beta over estrogen receptor alpha activation ratio, we can see that it is more than 1. What this means is that this ratio would indicate our survival instinct, and when this ratio is higher, we will become more at ease and more calm, and when this ratio is lower, we will become more uneasy and anxious. Now, with this example, we can see that because this ratio is more than 1, we are highly at ease and highly calm to counter the anxious stress. But our body knows that we're under anxious stress, and therefore our fertility will be reduced. When we face an extreme anxious stress, our 5-alpha reductase enzyme will be more than 0, whereby testosterone will now amplify towards GHT and will become highly androgenic. This severe anxiety will also lead to an increment in aromatization rate from previously of 0.2 to now of 0.3. Do refer to the blue table at the right hand corner. We can see that previously at aromatization rate of 0.2, testosterone is at 180, and now due to cortisol steal, it has reduced to 170 at aromatization rate of 0.3. Now, when we multiply these two numbers with its respective aromatization rate, we will obtain estradiol level of 36 and 51 respectively, and the net testosterone will be 144 and 119 respectively. The summary of aromatization rate increment is a decrease in testosterone level and an increase in estradiol or estrogen level. Now, with regards to estrogen receptor beta over estrogen receptor alpha, we can see that due to the overworking of the liver to counter the extreme anxious stress, this would lead to estradiol activating more of estrogen receptor beta over estrogen receptor alpha, and therefore the ratio becomes very high. And with such high ratio, what this means is that we'll become extremely at ease and extremely calm to counter the extreme anxious stress, which is a crucial survival instinct. However, our body knows that we're under extreme anxious stress, and therefore we will face infertility. When we face borderline depression or borderline personality disorder or BPD, there's still a component of anxiety within this type of depression, and because of that, 5-alpha reductase enzyme will be more than 0, which means that testosterone will amplify towards GHT and will become more androgenic. This same anxiety would also lead to an increase in aromatization rate from previously of 0.2 to now of 0.25. Please do refer to the blue table at the right hand corner. We can see that at aromatization rate of 0.2, the testosterone is at 200, and then it is reduced to 180 due to cortisol steal, whereby cortisol hormone is increased at the expense of sex hormones. Now, when we multiply these two numbers with their respective aromatization rate, we will then obtain estrogen level of 40 and 45 respectively, and the net testosterone level will then be 160 and 135 respectively. What this means is that when there is an increase in aromatization rate due to anxiety, we will see that testosterone will decrease while estrogen or estradiol will increase. Now, with regards to estrogen receptor beta over estrogen receptor alpha activation ratio, we can see that at the normal aromatization rate of 0.2, the ratio is more than 1, and meanwhile, at the aromatization rate of 0.25, the ratio is less than 1. This actually reflects a fluctuating mood associated with borderline depression or BPD. And when we have an ERB over ER alpha activation ratio more than 1, we'll be highly at ease and highly calm to face the stress. But when this same ratio is less than 1, we'll become slightly frustrated and slightly anxious and not be able to handle the stress well. Now, this fluctuating mood, which reflects a borderline depression, corroborates with a 2003 study whereby it says that any increases in estrogen level would result in more BPD symptoms. Now, because our body knows that we are still under stress, there will be a reduction in fertility. When we face dysthymia depression, similar numerical application applies as per borderline depression from the previous page. But the only difference is that during the normal aromatization rate, we'll become slightly frustrated and slightly anxious, while when there's an increased aromatization rate, we become frustrated and anxious. Our fertility, meanwhile, will be reduced because of the fact that we're facing anxiety and emotional stress. When we face bipolar depression, similar numerical application is applied as per before, but the only differentiating factor will be during the normal aromatization rate, we become more frustrated and anxious to counter the stress, while during the increased aromatization rate phase, we become very frustrated and very anxious to counter the stress. Meanwhile, our fertility will be reduced because the body knows that we are under stress. When we face major depression, similar numerical application concept is applied as per before, but the only differentiating factor will be that during the normal aromatization rate, we'll become very frustrated and very anxious. Meanwhile, during the increased aromatization rate phase, we'll become extremely frustrated and extremely anxious. Meanwhile, our fertility will still be reduced because the body knows that we're under stress. This is a table compilation of the numerical applications that we have discussed so far. And we note that as we progress down the depression type within the table, from borderline or BPD depression to dysthymia to bipolar 2 to major depression, we can see that there are progressively higher free radical damages on estrogen receptor beta at the brain, from low to moderate, high, and extreme. And with the increasing free radical damages at ERB at the brain, our mental overexertion would start from low, moderate, high to extreme. And with such progression, we can see that our stress coping level will deteriorate from good to bad. Now, the mood generally worsens during the decreasing testosterone level and increasing estrogen level, triggered by the increase in aromatization rate, where the estrogen increase fluctuations will impact the ERB over ER alpha ratio. Essentially, depression or mania happens because we cannot cope well with the emotional stress that we face in our lives. For instance, if we have low emotional stress and we can't cope well mentally by having a low level of wrong mental coping, such as rumination, we will then have a mood disorder called borderline depression, where it fluctuates between normalcy or baseline to a low level of depression. Now, if we face a moderate emotional stress, meanwhile, coupled with a moderate level of wrong mental coping, we will then have dysthymia, which is a moderate level of depression. Now, if we have a moderate level of emotional stress coupled with a moderate level of wrong mental coping, and in addition a moderate level of wrong nutrient coping, we will then have bipolar 2, which can fluctuate between the mania spectrum and depression spectrum at a high mental overexertion level. Now, if we have an extreme emotional stress and also an extreme wrong mental coping and an extreme wrong nutrient coping, we will then have bipolar 1, which fluctuates between an extreme level of mania and also high to extreme level of depression. Now, if we have an extreme emotional stress and we can't cope well by having extreme wrong mental coping, we would then have major depression. So, borderline, dysthymia, bipolar, major depression can be quantified along the mania depression spectrum, and more often than not, these diagnoses can interchange along this spectrum, and therefore this means there are many misdiagnoses due to the interchangeability of these mood disorders. Similarly, metabolic syndrome can be quantified along the metabolic syndrome spectrum. For instance, if we have a moderate level of anxious stress coupled with a moderate level of wrong nutrient coping, we will then have a moderate level of physical overexertion, which is a lean type of metabolic syndrome. Now, if we have an extreme type of anxious stress coupled with an extreme wrong nutrient coping, then we will have an extreme physical overexertion, which is a type of overweight metabolic syndrome. From the concepts that we have learned so far, and as well as the metabolic syndrome and depression case studies, it can be seen that they do share common root causes and impaired body mechanism, which are: number 1, compromised antioxidant defense system; number 2, overexertion due to chronic stress; number 3, free radical damages; number 4, inability to restore chemical balance. So do have a read on these 4 factors which explain the interrelationships between these 2 disparate disorders. A person with an MTHFR gene defect could potentially have a compromised antioxidant defense system. However, even though we have a bad gene, it does not dictate our destiny. We can actually reverse the effects of a bad gene via good mental coping and good nutrition. Now, with good nutrition and mental coping, metabolic syndrome and depression could even be reversed. Now, what is good nutrition and what is good mental coping? Good nutrition means a reduction in the predisposition to metabolic issues via a balanced food intake such as adequate carbohydrate, protein, and fats, ensuring effective methylation via adequate vegetables and fruits intake, where these vegetables and fruits contain vitamins and minerals crucial for the methylation process. Again, we also need to prevent oxidative stress via an adequate antioxidant food intake such as green tea, blueberries, turmeric, and fish oil. Good mental coping with regards to metabolic syndrome means to reduce or manage anxious type of stress that overexerts the endocrine organs such as the liver or sex gland, which can lead to metabolic syndrome through actions such as meditation. Good mental coping for depression, meanwhile, means to reduce or manage emotional type of stress that overexerts the brain via distraction with fulfilling activities which uplifts feeling of well-being and also reduces anxieties. We also need to prevent rumination activities. A potential easy and fast way to detect whether we have metabolic syndrome or depression would be to observe whether we have severe acne on our forehead or lower chin area. Now, severe acne at our forehead represents over-emotional stress at the brain, more DHT at the central nervous system associated with depression. Severe acne at our lower chin area represents over-anxious stress at the liver, more DHT at the skin and face associated with metabolic syndrome. Now, the reasons for the severe acne are: number 1, increasing lipids; number 2, low immunity to combat acne bacteria; number 3, androgenic; number 4, a decreasing antioxidant level. From comparison of sections E and I of the report, and as well as the metabolic syndrome and depression case studies, it can be seen that there are common natural ways to heal metabolic syndrome and depression, as they share key common root causes and impaired body mechanism, where the 4 utmost key healing items are: number 1, higher intake of multivitamin and mineral formulated for MTHFR gene defect, with higher active form of vitamin B complex, C, and minerals zinc and magnesium to improve methylation. Antioxidants such as vitamin C and E to counter oxidative stress, and vitamins A, D, E, and K to improve growth, healing, and immunity. Second, higher intake of complete protein such as soy protein supplement to rebuild cell damaged by free radicals. Thirdly, higher intake of good fats such as fish oil or flaxseed oil to repair cell membrane damaged by free radicals and reduce 5-alpha reductase enzyme, which triggers the cascade of metabolic syndrome and depression symptoms. Lastly, specific supplementation to heal organs. This research report is based on a holistic approach to healing, with substantiation from conventional studies, and the pros are: it heals the root cause of the illness, it is non-addictive, no adverse side effects from supplement intake, adherence to supplement as no negative stigma is attached, and the constraints are: it takes a longer time to heal, minimum 3 to 6 months, it requires a strong commitment to change of lifestyle, for example nutrition and mental thinking habits.